From the people who help you know your competition, InteliChek presents the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. The Multi-Point Inspection Podcast brings you news and stories from the automotive world told in an informative and entertaining way.
In the mix. Two turntables spinning labels. Mixing it up live.
Exclusive hot new mix.
My name is Corey Smith. I'm the National Fixed Operations Training Manager for APCO Holdings.
Corey is also the producer and host of the Fixed Ops 5 podcast.
It's National Auto Care's Fixed Ops 5, an APCO Holding brand podcast, powered by Passion, with your host, Corey Smith.
Welcome to Fixed Ops 5. I'm your host, Corey Smith, National Fixed Operations Training Manager.
The podcast really fits with my radio background. I've interviewed Aerosmith a couple times. You know, I was supposed to interview Gene Simmons from Kiss, but he didn't want to talk to me that day. I started working at the car dealership in 1998. As a service advisor. I worked my way up to assistant service manager, and then a fixed ops director. Did that until 2016, and my kids were getting older, and obviously working in the service department, you're there from bell to bell. You know, for me, it was 7 to 7, and in some cases, I'd show up early and I'd leave late. So I was missing a little bit at home, but I had this itch that I really wanted to give back and do more. So I wanted to get outside of the dealership. So I worked for a company that we started our own brand of fluids for the car dealership, kind of like a BG or a Mach. I did that in New England, which is where I have all my dealership experience. That's where I was born and raised in New England. And then from there, I did the fluid business for 3 years, parlayed that to working for JD Power, loved working for JD Power. And then I got an offer from another insurance provider. I worked there for a couple of years. It's a really, really big organization. So I felt like a number more than an employee. And we couldn't really get a lot of stuff done. It took months to get anything implemented. So I wanted to work with a little bit smaller of a company. And that led me to National Auto Care. I met with Tony Wanderen. He had a great vision and I really, really liked it. And I basically told him, I said, I want to come work for you. And I've loved it ever since. I get up every morning with just passion and excitement to work for an organization that allows you to be creative. His vision was to, hey, with your radio background, I want you to do podcasts and I want you to develop this training for us. And I've been able to do all that. So the reason why he wanted me to do the podcast part of it is because of my radio background. My first real job other than raking blueberries was working at a radio station. So I've never done a podcast before. I've done plenty of radio shows. So I just took my knowledge from that and really brought into Fixed Ops 5 what it started out to be, just a 5-minute quick hitting podcast, not really a podcast, just quick hitting information. And now it's turned into 20, 30-minute episodes, what's going on in the dealership life, whether it's power sports, RV or car dealership, service, sales, F&I, all the things that creates, a good customer experience for the dealership.
So what does a day in the life look like for a National Fixed Ops Training Manager?
Well, it starts first thing in the morning. I go through our calendar because I'm always looking at our calendar, where we're going to be next. And I have a team now. I have Eric Howdegi, who is in charge of the West region, and I have Dave Foy, who's in charge of the East region. So we typically get together around 9 or 10 o'clock every day, as long as we're not doing virtual classes or in a dealership, and kind of talk about our day, what we have going on. So it's constant working with our reps out in the field, scheduling us at different dealerships, whether they're doing live in the drive or virtual classes or a classroom setting, coming up with more content, more training modules on a daily basis, recording the podcast, editing the podcast, right? Writing more articles because of my biggest thing that I want to do and the company really wants us to be a face for is understanding what our platform is, utilizing that platform, and creating change and topics with other magazines, whether it's Fixed Ops Magazine, Auto News, CBT, those type of publications to really get out in the forefront. So we're always constantly juggling a few things within that course of that day.
And with the training, whether it be virtual or in-house, I wanted to know exactly what Corey and his team teach.
So the biggest thing that we teach is process. So a lot of dealerships don't have a written process, and if it's not written, it's not really a process. So we work with them on that front. We also do other classes where we'll do live in the drive stuff, which that we can do a number of different topics, but all that stuff that we teach is really all real world curriculum. So we'll take the new service advisor that's never written service before, and we'll have a course teaching them how to meet and greet the customer or make an appointment, writing a repair order, doing an active delivery. We have courses on time management, and this is really effective because you can't go back in time, and teaching the advisor that their biggest thing is selling time. So we talk about SMART goals. We talk about navigating the service drive, answering phones and emails, really starting with the end in mind, right? Having a logbook to really keep yourself on track. So you're calling customers back on time. Overcoming the word no. So many advisors don't really know what to say after the customer says no to them, right? We teach them how to do that. We give them life tracks, not word tracks, but life tracks to get through that. We talk about CSI, how to really make that customer a customer for life, and getting them to come back, planting seeds for the survey, really asking for the survey, and selling more than just oil changes. We also teach them phone skills. We'll even work with the technicians and the parts department.
With Corey responsible for such comprehensive training in dealerships, I figured he would be dialed in on the biggest challenges dealerships face in 2023.
I think the biggest thing is scheduling accordingly, focusing on scheduling maintenance and whatnot. Most dealerships that we go out to visit and do some consulting or training with are scheduling 2-3 weeks out. If a customer has a tire light, a check engine light, a noise, they don't want to wait 2 or 3 weeks. If you're telling that customer, well, I can't get to you until 2 or 3 weeks, they're going to go to somebody else. So that's the biggest challenge. You really need to take a look at your scheduling and your traffic with your bays. You got to make sure your technicians are well trained and that you're being productive. So again, maximizing the time that you're open so that you're not telling that customer we're 2 or 3 weeks out. They're not going to take that. They're going to go someplace else.
And part of the reason for the scheduling challenges has to do with technician shortages. But Corey says that he is seeing dealerships combat the shortage issue by using techniques that we have covered in previous episodes of the Multi-Point Inspection podcast.
When they're ready, we get first pick of a lot of the TCAT students, and we'll bring them in an apprentice program, let them work under one of the GM certified technicians for a few years. Then we'll put them out on their own as a line technician. So kind of homegrowing our own technicians.
I say start early, like a college football team. If we're going to talk about, high school graduates young, get in there when they're sophomores, and start building a relationship. Let them know that, hey, this is a great career, Actually working on a program right now to start like an apprentice program or a training program for technicians, and it's going to encompass starting early with students coming out of high school. We're not going to exclude it to high school students, but we really want to hit that area and pick up where we've dropped the ball, because we have.
Yeah, shortage of techs, the work mix, having too many recalls come in all at once, or heavy mechanical and you only have one person. And in some cases, the technicians are tired, right? The ones that are just getting all this work mix, and it's really difficult. It's a fine line, because when I was an advisor, I had a hard time saying no, because I want to take care of that customer and I want to get paid, right? So I always said yes to everything, right? And we just figured it out. But I think moving forward with that tech shortage is many of our dealers are working with local high schools, community colleges to build a direct pathway to pay students to learn the trade at the same time. So anticipating that it is going to happen, there is going to be a slowdown over the next few years. I've been beating this drum for the last 6 or 7 months. So the best way to really keep the revenue steady is working with your local high schools, working with your local community colleges, and treating it like a minor league baseball team, teaching them your way early, and then releasing them, and you're going to retain that technician long term. So you're putting that technician in your pipeline and building your pipeline, having a successful dealership, training and recruiting that next generation of professional technicians is vital. It's time to really evolve your fixed op staff strategy by keeping your dealership thriving, and that's the way you can really do that. Yeah, I think that's the major one, right? Is having your own pipeline and treating it like a minor league. Because once they graduate, right, or once they get out of high school, do they really know what they want to do to give them that successful platform and show them a path? The new employee, they don't really want a lot more than what we wanted. We wanted more money. Their language isn't more money. It's experiences, it's job placement, it's titles, right? It's being involved in the actual business, saying, here's my idea to improve this, and really listening to them, right? They want all those things more so than money. So if you can do that, I've seen some dealerships do longevity bonuses. The longer you work there, the more money you have when you retire. And that's been really effective, because after the first couple of years, it's a couple $1,000s. Then after 30 years, it could be, $40,000, $50,000. So that's a lot of money. And that when they get an offer from another dealership for $2, $3 or $5 more, they're going to look at, well, you don't have the longevity bonus, so I'm going to stay here. And I don't really care about the $5 more. I can earn more than that by staying here. So the more you can keep them there and be part of your culture, the more you're breeding that culture of excellence, right? So I think those are good things that we see dealers doing. Having a real scheduling tool and teaching the advisors how to really schedule. And if you have a lot of incoming calls, maybe getting a BDC, whether it's in-house or out of the dealership, having them take it away from the advisors. Because what we've seen advisors do is they try to control the schedule, saying, I can only really handle this today, right? And if they're handling that and the shop is dead, that's going to make those technicians start looking for another place to work. So what we found is by taking it away from the advisor and having another person schedule it and really focusing on maximizing the workflow and the time, the better and more revenue the dealership is making.
Corey talks about service advisors, the importance of podcasting in the automotive space, the rise of EVs, AI, and more, after a word from our sponsor. Perception is not always reality.
And, there's this perception that the dealerships are more expensive for everything. And InteliChek kind of confirms that that's not the case.
InteliChek helps dealerships become aware of where their prices stand in regard to their competitors.
And InteliChek does a good job of giving us that pricing data to confirm that we're in the market.
And this allows dealerships to make their customers aware of their competitive pricing.
I placed 2 placards in the business center so they could see that while they're over there working on computers. Also placed it in our coffee area. We have a glass wall there, so when they walk in, as they're putting their creamer and sugar in their coffee, they're going to look up and see the pricing for our pricing as well as our competitors.
Introducing InteliShare. InteliShare contains all of InteliChek's promotional tools that you can use to promote your favorable prices, including InteliAds, the printable flyers that you can show off in easel displays, InteliMedia for your digital media boards, and InteliWidgets, so you can show off price comparisons on your website and even let your customers schedule from the widget.
Just having access to that data that they're able to provide gives us a good plan of how we're going to proceed.
Call 877-827-7273 or go to InteliChek.com to find out more about how the InteliShare Series can help you grow your business.
Every class I teach or anytime I come in contact with an advisor, I tell them you have the hardest job in the dealership, the most hardest job in the dealership. You're in charge of juggling, giving somebody bad news, trying to empathy with the customer, right? Make sure that your repair orders are closed perfectly and your sublets are on point, all those things. Then you got to cash them out. Then you got to talk about CSI. So you're graded on everything. That's a lot of stress, but I had a lot of fun with it. I enjoyed being a service advisor. And when I'm at a dealership, I love just grabbing a clipboard and writing the customer up. I'm passionate about it. I love being a service advisor.
Corey says that a lot of thought went into how the Fixed Ops 5 podcast would serve its listeners, and just as much thought goes into the guests that are featured.
The podcast is really designed to be very impactful and concise, and allowing the dealership personnel or people that are outside the dealership, like reps and other insurance companies, to really learn something and to try to implement it into their dealerships. So guests that we look for are, people that are doing some great things in the industry, whether it's technology or AI, or who have written a great book that talks about, the business. We really like to go with people that are disruptors in the marketplace. We've had Glenn Lundy, who is just an amazing mind on the podcast. I learned a lot from him personally within that podcast, and that I've implemented into my life. I've had Josh Taylor on, who is an amazing mind on a technician, and I'm great at breaking things. Fixing them's not my bag. So I learned a lot from Josh. He really took the perspective of the technician needs more support than what we've ever given him before. And I really like that. I really like that we had that discussion and talked about that. I've had Joe and Eric from Service Drive Live. It's a mastermind group, and they get together every Sunday and we talk about topics, and there's 30 or 40 people on there, and I always learn so much from that. It's a Sunday. I'd rather be making breakfast for my family, but for that hour, I learn more in that hour than I could without it. And I feel weird when I don't make that. So Joe and Eric have been really great. Russell Hill and what he does for the industry, those types of things we like to talk about. We really get into whether it's power sports, RV, or finance, or sales, or service. Try to find some topic that anyone that's listening can relate to and have some takeaways on how they can implement it into their team or themselves. That's what the podcast is really about. And I think the experience that I had in radio really brought out that creative side of me that I didn't really know I had until Tony Wandern gave me the opportunity to do it.
And Corey says that podcasts in general, which are starting to permeate the automotive space, are helpful for those just starting out, as well as veterans of the industry.
I believe it's huge. If we look at when I started in the auto business in 1998, what did I really have that was going to help me be successful in writing service? Nothing. There's minimal, right? So now, if you're a new advisor just getting into the business, think of what they have now. We didn't have podcasts back then. We didn't have books. We didn't have a lot of training. For that matter, the new advisor can listen to a podcast to and from work if they want to. They can listen to a book about writing service. They can stay up on customer trends. They can get better at their jobs. Even YouTube. There's YouTube videos on everything. I fix my dishwasher by a YouTube video, right? There's YouTube videos on how to do a proper walk around or how to overcome objections. I didn't have any of that stuff. Can you imagine if I had that back then, where I'd be today? So I think the auto industry catching on and having more podcasts, giving out more experiences or more tips is great for all of us. It's great for the end user that's listening, right? But it's also great for people like me or you that's listening to somebody else's podcast. I learned something from everybody's podcast I listen to, whether it's Russell Hill's, whether it's yours, whether it's Kaylee or Brooke. I learn a lot from them, and I write down stuff and I'm like, man, that's a great topic. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to dive into some more of this topic, right? And really expand it. And we're always pushing the envelope. And that's what the podcast can do. And that's what the auto industry can learn from is that we're pushing the envelope to make the experience and make the dealership life that much greater, because it is a great industry.
And there's a lot of talk of EVs these days and how they will change dealerships as we know them. So I asked Corey, what should dealerships be doing to prepare?
I think there should be a certain percentage on a daily basis of how they prepare for it and what their plan is. Everyone needs to have a plan, because you're right, it is coming. So if we look at why is it being pushed, I think it's being pushed because gas prices are still really high. The consumer really wants it. And it's not a huge percentage of the market that wants it. So obviously you and I are consumers. So I bought a new vehicle. And for me, I wanted hybrid. I wanted to get the good gas mileage, but I still wanted gas, right? Because I still have that, well, if I'm driving, I don't want to plan out where I've got to charge this thing, because I live in South Carolina, and sometimes I drive to Virginia. Sometimes I drive to Tennessee, and you've been through those areas. Is there a charging station there? I don't want to have to worry about that. So that was how I came up with a hybrid. So it's still pretty early. You got 25 to 30% of new vehicle market will be EV by 2030, right? So how can the dealership prepare for it? I think having a plan, opting into training and customer education opportunities. I always teach our advisors to educate and sell. I don't like the term upsell because I feel that's a dirty word. I feel like that means selling something to the customer that they don't need. So I like educating and selling, because if I can educate the customer on the why, they need it, and give them choices, then they're going to buy it. So that's what EV does. It gives that other customer another choice. So now as a consumer, you can do gas, you can do just EV, you can do hybrid, and there's two other ones, right? And for the masses to sit there and say it's 100% green, it's not, right? We all know that. But let's look at it on its face, right? Dealers should really understand that new customer will be coming for EV, and that customer that's coming to buy EV now will be different from the early adopters. They're going to have a different want, a different need. For the service department, it's getting into something that they've never really truly been into. And what I mean by that, they dip their toe into tires. They have a tire wall. Maybe they have 2 or 3 different sets, but they didn't really invest into it. They're not a tire dealer. What the dealership's going to have to do is become a tire dealer, because when it comes to EVs, tires are going to be the new oil change. I'm not here for an oil change. I'm here for a tire, right? I'm here for a set of tires, right? So if you set up that process now, and you set up the tire inspection and the maintenance are the reasons for those visits. So you've got to have tires. You got to talk about rotations. You got to talk about balances. You got to talk about alignments. Those are going to be the big things when it comes to EV. So if you really look at that EV market, I think if I remember correctly, 71% of the vehicles on the road today are due for an alignment. Right? That's a huge number. So can you have some good penetration and still get a good ROI by maybe you buy a couple new alignment machines or alignment checkers because your manufacturer is half of their mix is all EV. That's a good ROI. Having that regular performance, having an EV menu. If you can put that in the customer's hand or have it on the website, or teach your technician and your advisors how to educate that customer on why these are needed, then you're going to have success, and the owner experience is going to be that much greater. With EV, the number needs to be close to 100% for your business, right? And right now, most businesses are about 8% share in tire sales. I mean, wrap your head around that for a second. 8%.
Another type of new technology that fixed ops departments should embrace, according to Corey, is AI.
Man, I love AI. For me, I have it on every meeting. I don't have to take down notes anymore. I love that. I can hire an AI tool to help me build a PowerPoint. For those things, I love AI. AI-powered systems that can suggest maintenance packages to your customers. I'm all about that, right? Allowing AI to educate that customer on a base or individual maintenance history for that vehicle's data. Awesome. Right? I love that. The degree of personalization means that the service advisor doesn't have to guess what to suggest, and it also ensures the customer is going to receive the right offer at the right time. That's what AI can really do with the fixed ops department itself. It can also lead to better leads for an appointment, for scheduling. I always tell advisors to do the assumptive when it comes to scheduling the next appointment. Control what you can control. Say, hey, Mrs. Jones, it looks like you like Tuesdays at 9:00. I've gone 5 months out and already made that appointment for you. Now the advisor doesn't have to do that. AI can do that for you. Using that machine that learns those driving habits and automatically makes that next service appointment. Now, we all know that I don't know what I'm doing 6 months from now, but when the dentist does it, I show up. Your new customer is going to do that. AI knows me better than I know me. Okay, sure, no problem. So when the customer gets a text back to the dealership, provides them with insight of how their visit went. I love that part of AI as well, the communication part of it, because we all know at the dealership level we're poor at communicating. The advisor doesn't want to call unless they really have a real update, and AI can do that. Just say, hey, we're just thinking of you. Just want to let you know your vehicle's not done yet, but we just wanted to reach out. You can do a 1-question survey now. It doesn't have to be a whole email and then get bombarded by 5 different surveys and the customer fills out the wrong one. Now it's just a 1-question survey. How do we do? think going into 2024, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. Is I think from an industry standpoint, we have a lot of great things coming to the forefront, not only with AI, but for my part of the industry, working for APCO Holdings. We're responsible for dealing with 14,000 dealerships and really helping educate the advisors in the dealerships. So we're coming up with more content. So I'm really looking forward to the future.
I'd like to thank Corey Smith from APCO Holdings and the Fixed Ops 5 podcast for the insightful interview. You can find the Multi-Point Inspection podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps with the algorithm thingy. Executive producers for the Multi-Point Inspection podcast are Melissa Marlette and Joe Gibson. It is written, produced, and narrated by me, Brandon Barnett. This episode's featured music is Pumpkin Spice Sunrise by Desert Dive. InteliChek. Know your competition.